Hello everyone, my name is Beth and I'm a Why Choose romance author and reader, and today we are going over some fantasy romance recommendations. So let's just jump straight into it. So the first book I have for you is actually a very old series. It's the original series that I ever read when I was younger. If you hear some noise in the background, that's my son. He's awake at the moment. And this series was actually like what I read before I even knew what Waitrus was. I just like enjoyed the concept and what it was all about, and that is the Mary Gentry series by Laurel K. Hamilton. I do know she does have a vampire series as well. I have not read that series. I think it's the Anita Blake series. I never read that one. I don't know why, it just never appealed to me. But this one is Faye, and it follows Meredith, who is a half unseelie, half human. She's essentially like, I want to say the princess, but not quite a princess. It's her aunt who is the unseelie queen, but she's in hiding. So it follows her story. Each book is technically a standalone, so it ends like with a completion at the end of the book, and each book starts a new story, but it's still in order, if that makes sense. So this is it's not necessarily a slow build harem, but it is a harem that has people added to it as time goes on. It is slightly dated because I don't even remember when this series started. Like this particular book was published in 2000, so it is slightly outdated with some things, in terms of like you might notice like with technology or something mentioned that it has like that slightly outdated aspect. In saying that though, I do go back and read this series quite often. Like as you can tell, like the spine is very well worn, and I don't have too many issues. But we follow Meredith, who was in hiding and then is discovered in this book, where she's been hiding in the human world, and humans are aware of the Fae. So the unseelie and the seelie courts, and like we have goblins as well, and like darker kind of Fae that aren't really connected to the seelie or the unseelie. And there's like pixies and stuff as well, so they are made aware in the human world, and they do have like connections and stuff. Like it's very like modern world, like it's well done in the way that like if they had come to light, like there's like media and press conferences and things like that, and like connections in that regard from the human world to the Fae world, and that sort of thing. So we do have that. They are quite spicy. I would say this is probably spicier than plot, but the plot still drives things forward. So the spice is kind of like part of the plot, if that makes sense. But yeah, so the essential premise of the entire series is that the Fae are not very fertile anymore, and it's her aunt ends up giving her the opportunity to take the throne if she can become pregnant. So she's also gifted a bunch of men, Fae men, and the entire purpose is to get her pregnant. So that is the premise of the series, but without spoiling it too much, like there is, I want to say 9 books I think in this series. So yeah, it's a long series, but it is my OG very first reverse harem series, and that is like before basically reverse harem polyamory or anything like that was really well known. So yeah, when I randomly picked this up, I just loved the concept that she didn't have to choose, and had all of them. So it is one of my absolute favorites, and highly recommend checking it out. The next book on this list is probably one that everyone has heard by this point, and that is the Broken Bond series by J. Bree. I do believe at the time, well, just before this video, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, there was a book that was released in this world that was from the guy's point of view from book one, which is Broken Bonds. So it is like this entire book told from the male point of view, because this is mostly FMC point of view until I think we get to like book 2 or 3, and then like there's more point of views from them, but it's still not a whole lot. It's still mostly from the FMC's point of view. If you don't know this series, we are following Ollie, who in this world there is bonded. So bonded is essentially like a concept of fated mates, and there is usually one bond, the FMC, who is the center of these bonded, and like the heart of the bonded basically, and she has been on the run from her bonded, and you do discover who they are and find out who they are before your bonds happen. So her bonded have been looking for her, and they find her and drag her back, and it is essentially a little bit of like an enemies to lovers aspect. We do have 4 MMCs. We do have an aspect of college, because her age and a couple of the other male characters are college age, and then we've got some slightly older MMCs as well, who are brothers, who are essentially the concept of a shadow daddy. They both are in different degrees, so everyone has different abilities as well. So we follow Ollie and understanding her secrets as to why she ran, and then the bonds forming and the connections forming from there. So it is quite an intense ride. I will be honest, I haven't read the final book in the series, and that's only because I had shiny object syndrome and went to a different series. It is on my list to finish though, because I did enjoy the series, and there is a lot of like emotional components. There is some good side characters as well in this. Like you do get a lot of side character plot and plot twists and things that come through from that as well. But yeah, so this is definitely one to check out if you're if you enjoy fantasy romance, and you do get a good chunk. Like there's four books in the main series, and now the 5th book that's come out, which is from the guy's point of view as well. So you do get a really good fun ride with this series. The next book I am recommending is The Blackened Blade by Isla Davin. Yeah, Isla Davin. And it's been a while since I've read this. I actually do want to go back and read book 1, because I've only read book 1 and book 2, and I believe book 3 is out now. But we are essentially following an FMC who died and has come back to life and is reliving the events before she dies, essentially. So it's quite a fun, interesting component. I do like that this is it's a slower burn, and we do have a lot of like emotional aspects and emotional building with this one, and the plot that comes through from this is a very unique, interesting plot. Like I know that second chance, like coming back to life kind of thing, and reincarnation is something that can seem to be overdone, but in saying that, I do like the uniqueness that came through with this book. But again, as I said, it has been a while since I read this one, and I do want to go back and just refresh my mind, because I do feel like this is also one of those books that you kind of do have to read a couple of times, because there's so many like Easter eggs and aspects that you might miss the first time around. But yeah, definitely recommend this one if you enjoy a fantasy aspect, a female character who is sorely underestimated as well, and unique takes on fated mates or bonds as well. There was a slightly more unique aspect that came through from that as well, and plot twists that you're not necessarily going to see coming. Now, this next book that I'm recommending is actually a self-recommendation. This is one of my books that I personally have written, and this is a series, and this book is Witchblood, and the series is called The Witchblood Legacy. This is book 1 in the series. So this is following the FMC, who lives in a world amongst supernatural beings. So you've got like everything from gods through to fays, vampires, anything you can think of, essentially. So everything that we were told is a myth in our world is essentially real. However, witches themselves are thought to be extinct. And that is because during the witch trials in England, it was believed that the witches were essentially killed out. So we believe witches are gone. However, the female character discovers that she is from a line of witches, and the story sort of goes from there. The story starts off with the heiress Poppy Villalobos entering into the female character's store. So the female character owns a cafe store that is very catered to humans who have like a stereotype of what supernaturals are. So she runs that kind of store, and Poppy Villalobos walks in needing to be helped because she has injured herself, and she is the vampire heiress of one of the Villalobos mafia. And the story sort of goes from there. We do have 6 fated mates in total for this one. One of them is actually a ghost, and the ghost of her... Sorry, my son is driving his cars at the moment. One of the fated mates is actually a ghost of her husband from a past life. So we do have aspects of reincarnation in this one as well. We have... Sorry, it's getting a bit loud there. We do have a vampire mate, a werewolf, we have a fae, we also have an angel, a demon, and then a ghost as well. And we do have like the dynamics that come through. Yes. Ta. Mommy. Yes, it is Mummy. Sorry for a mum break there. Yes, so definitely check that out if you do enjoy this. This is a series of standalones. So this is a happy ever after for this harem, and then you meet the characters for the next book in this book series and continues on. So there's 5 books in total. It is a completed series. This is on Audible as well, so you can listen to the audio, which I personally recommend doing because they always do a great job with the narration. But yeah, check that one out. The final book I have for you is another sort of fae one. I do feel like this is kind of like a cross between fantasy and paranormal, and that is the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac. And starting with book 1, Dark Fae. This is by the Twisted Sisters, Carolyn Peckham and Susan Valenti. They are very well known for the Zodiac Academy series. I personally haven't read them, but this is one of the spin-offs in that same world. This is following a FMC who has lost her brother. He mysteriously died, so she goes to this university college type thing to try to discover what happened to her brother, and then it kind of goes from there. So we do have like fae, vampires, all of that kind of thing in this world. I've always enjoyed with this series the unique aspect of adding in star signs to it. Like it's just that like fun little extra, I guess. And that's just speaking to the person, like to the part of me that always enjoyed horoscopes and things like that as well. So that does make that a little bit extra fun. We do have, I believe it was 5. It's been a while since I've read this series. It's 5 fated mates in total, which fated mates are quite rare in this world. And when the dynamics that happen between the men, especially because we have 2 opposing gangs essentially, with 2 MMCs from either side, and the way that like that enemies component happens and how the FMC is kind of in the middle of that and brings them all together. And we do have that like real golden retriever sunshine kind of MMC, like the broody aspect. Actually, I believe it's 4. Maybe it's 4. Yeah, I think it's 4. MMCs in this one, and the FMC in this is a vampire herself, so she's actually got her own strengths and her own abilities as well. So these are quite chunky. Like this, I believe, is the smallest one in this entire series, and they get chunkier as they go. But there is just something about these books that when you read them, you're unable to put them down. Essentially, they are very addictive. When I first got this series and first read this series, like I flew through all books. I believe it's 5 books for MMCs, which is where I'm getting my numbers mixed up. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking this one out if you like a good dose of, like, it's a really good balance of plot and spice. And the way that these books end, I'm not sure if they do this in all of their series, but this particular series, they actually end this really well with, they do like in like a year later and 5 years later and that sort of thing. So the prologues, or the epilogue, sorry, is quite extended and goes into different times, so you kind of see like the extension of what happens once they get their happy ever after. But yeah, definitely recommend checking this out. I've put it into fantasy because I do feel like this is more that fantasy style, because it is more of a longer sort of epic kind of plot as opposed to that paranormal component, but it probably would fall under both banners. So I hope you enjoyed this recommendation. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books, or if you have other fantasy recommendations for me to check out or for others to read as well. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.